Okay. Limiting factors to population growth. For a population to be healthy, factors such as food, nutrients, water, and space must be available. What happens when there are not enough resources to support the population? Limiting factors are resources or other factors in the environment that can lower the population growth rate. Limiting factors include a low food supply and a lack of space. Limiting factors can lower birth rates, increase death rates, or lead to emigration. Emigration meaning those organisms moving around to a new area. When organisms face limiting factors, they show logistical growth. That's an S-shaped curve. Competition for resources like food and space cause the growth rate to stop increasing so that the population levels off. This flat upper line on a growth curve is called the carrying capacity. The carrying capacity, sometimes represented by a capital K, is the maximum population size that can be supported in a particular area without destroying the habitat. Limiting factors determine the carrying capacity of a population. Recall that when there are no limiting factors, the population growth is exponential. In exponential growth, a J-shaped curve, as the population size increases, the growth rate also increases. This should be on your next slide of notes. Food supply as a limiting factor. If there are 12 hamburgers at a lunch table and 24 students sit down at a lunch table, will everyone be able to eat? Maybe? Okay, so at first maybe you can split the hamburgers in half. But if more people sit down and more keep coming to sit at the lunch table, you will not be able to feed everyone. This is what happens in nature. But in nature, organisms cannot split the food in half. And if they do not get enough food or find a new place to live, they will die. It is possible for any resource to be a limiting factor. However, a resource such as food can have dramatic consequences on a population. In nature, when the population size is small, there's usually plenty of food and other resources for each individual. When there is plenty of food and other resources, organisms can easily reproduce, so the birth rate is high. As the population increases, the food supply or the supply of another necessary resource may decrease. When necessary resources such as food decrease, some individuals will die out. Overall, the population cannot reproduce at the same rate, so the birth rates drop. This will cause the population rate to decrease. When the population decreases to a certain level, a certain point where an individual can get enough food and other resources, and the birth rates and death rates become stable, the population has leveled off at what is known as its carrying capacity. And so you can see in these images here, I've got kind of your standard teeter-totter. If you increase one, it causes the other to go down. If you, change one side, it affects the other. When you reach a carrying capacity, I've got this guy here balancing a car on his head. You can reach a stability standpoint where both sides are equal, where you have enough resources to support them. You're not using too many, not too many deaths, not too many births. You've reached kind of a stable point. Okay, but again, tipping one side or the other can throw that out of balance, which would be bad for him. Other limiting factors include light, water, nutrients, minerals, oxygen, the ability of an ecosystem to recycle its nutrients and or waste. If you have too much waste build up, that can be a limiting factor. Diseases, parasites, temperature, space, predation. So changing the number of predators in an area, weather, and human activities. We could do a whole lecture about how human activities can be a limiting factor on populations. Things such as pesticides, herbicides, and destroying habitat. If you have a forest ecosystem and people come through and put in fields and wipe out that forest ecosystem, it's difficult to have a forest ecosystem without the forest.